I felt the envelope before I saw it. That thin weight on the doormat, barely noticeable, almost weightless, still managed to stop me in my tracks. Maybe it was the way it sat there, crooked, like someone had slipped it under the door in a hurry. Maybe it was a faint indentation of handwriting pressed into the front. Or maybe, if I'm honest, something inside me had already been sensing that the world I knew was about to tilt. It was 6:42 a.m. The house was still. The kettle hadn't yet boiled. The soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sign of life. My wife, Sa, was upstairs drying her hair like she always did before leaving for work. Slow stroke of the towel followed by the lower of her old dryer. A comforting sound, a familiar sound, one of the anchor points of my morning. And yet, the moment I saw that envelope, something in me tightened. No name on the front, no stamp, just my handwriting on the back of the flap. Except it wasn't mine. Not exactly. The slant was the same. The spacing, too. But something was off, subtle enough to unsettle, like hearing your own voice played back at you with someone else's breath behind it. I picked it up slowly, as though afraid it might burn. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper folded once. Cream-colored. Thick. The kind used for formal invitations or last wills. My thumb hesitated on the fold. And then I opened it. At first, I just stared at the page, unable to make sense of the neat, typed sentence sitting perfectly centered. Tonight, at 8:13 p.m., your wife will lie to you. That was it. No signature. No explanation. No second sentence to soften the blow. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. A prickling heat spread across the back of my neck. My lungs forgot their function. My mind tried to shape the words into something else. Anything else that didn't mean what it seemed to mean. Footsteps sounded on the stairs behind me. Light. Familiar. Sa. I folded the letter quickly, shoving it into my pocket before she reached the bottom step. The paper crackled loudly in the quiet room, and I winced at the sound. She walked in wearing a navy blouse and black work slacks, her hair still damp at the ends, smelling faintly of jasmine and hotel shampoo. "Morning," she said, leaning in to kiss me on the cheek as she opened the fridge. "Coffee ready?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure. My heart was still in the envelope. She poured herself a mug, humming a tune she'd been stuck on for days. Something from a show she watched alone at night after I went to bed. She looked normal, exactly the same as every morning. No nervous twitch, no darting eyes, no sign of guilt. And yet, I kept hearing the sentence as if someone were whispering it directly into my skull. Tonight, at 8:13 p.m., your wife will lie to you. I felt the shift inside me instantly. A small fracture, a hairline crack along my truss, so thin it was almost invisible. But it was there. "What's wrong?" she asked suddenly, closing the fridge halfway and looking at me. Her eyes, hazel with a fleck of green in the left one, searched my face. "You look off." "Just tired," I said. A lie. Or maybe not. Maybe I was tired of the way fear can bloom from nothing. She nodded slowly, then grabbed her car keys. "I'll be home by 7. I promised Dad I'd stop by the shop and check on the order forms." "Your dad?" I blinked. "He called late last night. Remember? The supplier messed up the November shipment." "I told you." I didn't remember. Or maybe she never said it. It didn't matter. The letter echoed again, sinking deeper into my brain. "Tonight, at 8:13 p.m., your wife will lie to you." When she walked out the door, I followed her car with my eyes until it disappeared down the street. Only then did I take the letter out again and stare at the sentence, feeling something tighten in my chest. The kettle clicked off, but I didn't move. For the next several minutes, I just stood there, holding the paper like a warning I had no idea how to interpret. At work, I kept reaching into my pocket to touch the letter. The paper warmed against my palm, almost pulsing, like it had a heartbeat. I reread it so many times the words etched themselves inside my eyelids. Coworkers talked around me, conversations about budgets, deadlines, project numbers, but none of it registered. My mind replayed every small oddity from the past 2 months. Her late-night texts, her sudden urgent errands, the way she startled when I walked into a room, the new perfume she claimed she bought because it was on sale, the gym membership she used exactly twice. All small things, all explainable, But now, under the shadow of the letter, they rearranged themselves into something darker. By lunchtime, I had spiraled into imagining every possible meaning. What if someone was messing with me? What if this was a prank? What if someone hated my marriage? What if someone hated me? But no answer felt as chilling as the simplest one. What if it was true? I checked the clock more times than I blinked. 7:12 p.m., 7:35 p.m., 7:48 p.m. By 8:05, I was sitting on the couch, staring at the front door, the letter in my hand, my heartbeat pounding like footsteps in an empty hallway. 8:10. Silence. 8:11. The hum of the heater kicking on. 8:12. A car door outside. Soft. Almost careful. 8:13. The doorknob turned. I sat up straighter, every muscle tight. Sarah walked in carrying a small paper bag from a grocery store across town, the one she rarely went to. Her hair was slightly windblown, cheeks flushed, eyes brighter than usual. "You're home," she said, surprised. "I thought you'd still be at the office." "I left early." "Oh." She placed the bag on the counter. Dad kept me longer than I expected. He was stressed about the shipment, and I didn't hear the rest. My ears were ringing. Because a father's shop closes at 6 p.m. every night, and the man had heart problems. He was never there after closing, not once in 10 years. "Why are you staring at me like that?" she asked, pausing. "Where were you?" I said quietly. She blinked. Twice. "I told you. At Dad's." "Until when?" "Until, she hesitated. The smallest hesitation. Barely a wrinkle in her sentence. Barely a breath. But I heard it. I felt it. I watched the lie bloom in real time. "Until 7:30, she finished. My stomach dropped. 7:30. But the letter didn't say she'd cheat tonight. It said she'd lie. Just lie. A single lie could be harmless, or it could be the first domino. She exhaled, sensing something in my silence. "What's wrong with you tonight?" I wanted to confront her. I wanted to pull out the letter and slam it onto the counter and ask her what the hell she was doing. But I didn't. Some instinct held me back. Something deep and primal whispered, "Wait. Watch. Don't reveal your hand yet." "Nothing," I said softly. Another lie added to the room. Hers, then mine. 2 lies in one evening. But only one of them was predicted. I barely slept. Every creak, every shift of her weight on the mattress, every breath she took felt loud enough to crack the ceiling. The letter lay folded under my pillow like a blade. At 3:09 a.m., when she rolled over and draped her arm across my chest, her skin warm and familiar, my heart ached so sharply I almost gasped. Was this real? Was she still the woman I married? Or was I holding a stranger in the dark? I stared at the ceiling until dawn cracked the horizon in pale shades of gray. And when I got up to make coffee, something else waited on the doormat. Another envelope. Same paper. Same weight. Same Nilamai handwriting on the back. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. Inside, another single line. "Tomorrow she won't come home." The second envelope felt heavier than the first, even though I knew logically it weighed the same. Maybe it was the gravity of the words inside it. Maybe it was the way my fingers twitched uncontrollably as I held it, sensing that whatever was written there would wedge itself deep under my skin. Sarah was still asleep upstairs. Her soft breathing drifted down the staircase, steady, innocent, unbroken. It almost helped me pretend nothing was happening. Almost. But then I looked at the envelope again. Same cream-colored paper. Same faint indentations on the flap. Same imitation of my handwriting. I didn't let myself hesitate this time. I opened it. One sentence. Clean. Precise. Cold. Tomorrow. She won't come home. My breath left me like someone had punched it out of my lungs. Tomorrow. Not someday. Not soon. Tomorrow. The words throbbed in my vision, each letter sinking into me like hooks. I read it again. And again. By the 4th time, my hand was shaking. There are certain sentences that don't feel like predictions. They feel like verdicts. This one felt like both. I sank onto the couch, the letter trembling between my fingers. My heart beat too fast, loud enough that I could hear it in my ears. Something thick and cold unfurled inside my chest, a fear so dense it barely let me breathe. What did it mean she wouldn't come home? Because of work? Because she wouldn't want to? Because she'd be with someone else? Because something bad would happen? Oh, was this what infidelity looked like before it grew teeth? I didn't know, but I knew one thing with absolute clarity. Whoever was sending these letters wasn't guessing. The first prediction had already come true. 8:13 p.m. Her lie, the hesitation, the story about her father's shop being open late, something that never happened. It didn't matter that the lie had been small in comparison to what my imagination was conjuring now. Lies are doorways. Some lead into harmless rooms. Some open into nothing but darkness. And this one, this small contradiction, felt like it opened into a hallway with no light at the end. At 7:14 a.m., the floor creaked softly above me. Sarah was awake. By instinct, I shoved the letter into the inside pocket of the jacket draped over the armrest. My hand still felt cold when she walked downstairs. She wore her lavender sweater, the one she usually saved for weekends, and her hair was tied up in a loose knot like she hadn't bothered to fully dry it. Slightly messy, slightly rushed. Her eyes, however, were bright. "Morning," she said, smiling. "You up early?" I couldn't sleep. Still stressed about work. She moved closer, reaching to touch my arm. I flinched. Her hand froze midair before she pulled it back slowly, her expression tightening with confusion. Or hurt. Or both. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "Just tired." It was the same answer I had given the day before. But today it tasted different coming out of my mouth, more bitter, more hollow. She studied me for a long second, like she was trying to decode something I hadn't said. Then she crossed her arms and leaned against the counter. "I might have to stay late at the office today," she said. My heartbeat jolted. "Late? For what?" She shrugged. "We're behind on the Q4 reports. Maria asked if I could help finalize the projections." My stomach twisted. The letter, tomorrow, she won't come home. Was this how it would start? A casual sentence over coffee? A harmless explanation that would grow into something else by nightfall? How late? I asked, trying to keep my voice even. "Maybe 9, maybe 10. I'm not sure." She grabbed her mug, sipping slowly. "Don't wait up." My chest tightened at the familiar phrase. Don't wait up. People only said that when they knew someone would be waiting, or when they didn't want someone to. She placed the empty mug in the sink and turned to grab her purse. "I'll text you." "You didn't text yesterday," I said without thinking. She froze. Something flickered across her face. Guilt? Or surprise? Or just confusion? "I was with Dad," she said. My breath stilled. There it was. Again, the lie cementing itself. I didn't argue. Didn't confront. Didn't show I knew. A part of me was terrified that pushing her would break whatever was left. A part of me wanted to scream. But a larger part, a darker, quieter part, wanted to see where this went, to see if the letter was right again. When she opened the door to leave, she turned back to me. "I love you," she said softly. The 3 words landed between us, heavy and fragile. I wanted to believe them. Good, I wanted to. But a person can speak love with their mouth while hiding betrayal between their ribs. "I love you too," I said. The second lie of the morning. After she left, I drove, aimlessly at first, through empty streets, past a bakery where we used to get cinnamon rolls on Sundays, past a park where she told me she wanted to try for a baby in the spring, past a gym she paid for but never went to. Everything felt like a map I no longer recognized. Finally, I parked across the street from her office. Her workplace was a dull concrete building with rusting railings and a faded sign. Nothing glamorous, nothing suspicious, yet my chest wouldn't unclench. I watched for an hour. No one unusual. No one following her. No one picking her up. She walked into the building alone, head bent, eyes glued to her phone. Just before the door closed behind her, she smiled at something on her screen. Not a small smile. Not a polite one. A real smile, wide, soft, private. A smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. I told myself it could be her coworker sending a joke. I told myself it could be a family message. But the truth crept in anyway. It could also be him, whoever he was, if he existed, if the letters were pointing toward something real. Every explanation was possible, but only one felt inevitable. I didn't go to work. I spent the day trying to figure out where the letters came from. I traced every detail. Printer ink, standard. Paper, premium, expensive. Envelope, handcrafted, likely specialty store. Handwriting, matching mine at a glance, but not when studied up close. Someone was mimicking me. Someone who knew me. Someone who had watched me long enough to learn the shape of my writing. Someone close. A friend? A coworker? Her coworker? A neighbor? Or even? No, not her. Not yet. I didn't want to think it. By late afternoon, my chest had tightened so much it hurt to breathe. I kept glancing at the clock. 6:20 p.m. 6:55 p.m. 7:18 p.m. Each minute whispered the same thing. She's not coming home. At 8:03 p.m., the house felt too quiet. At 8:27 p.m., the quiet became a presence, like the wolves were listening. At 9:11 p.m., my phone vibrated. A text. My throat closed as I opened it. From Sa. Don't wait up. Might be later than I thought. Cold. Neutral. No heart emoji. No love you. No explanation. Just distance. I stood up from the couch, pacing. Minutes turned into an hour. Then another. 10:02 p.m. 11:15 p.m. 12:48 a.m. Still nothing. The house felt wrong, like it was missing a sound it had always relied on. At 1:37 a.m., the truth settled like ash. She wasn't coming home, exactly as the letter had said. I sank onto the stays. The reality hit me so hard it felt physical. My wife's absence had been predicted twice now, accurately, precisely, without fail. Fear wrapped itself around my spine. Whoever was sending these letters wasn't just watching my life. They were orchestrating it. And then, as I sat in the dark foyer with the weight of betrayal pressing against my ribs, something brushed against the bottom of the front door. A soft shuffle, a whisper of movement. A third envelope slid onto the doormat. This time, there was something red smeared across the top corner. Not ink, not paint. Something thicker, something too dark. My pulse spiked violently. With a trembling hand, I reached down, picked up the envelope, and opened it. One sentence. You're already too late. For a long moment, I couldn't move. The hallway was dark except for the weak golden spill of the streetlight through the frosted window. Dust floated in the beam like unsettled snow. My pulse throbbed in my neck, too loud, too fast. The envelope hung loosely between my fingers, the smear of dark red catching the dim light like an accusation. You're already too late. My first instinct was to convince myself the smear wasn't blood. It could have been ink, paint, wine, anything else. But when I lifted the envelope to my nose, a metallic tang hit me immediately. Copper, old pennies, blood. Not a lot, not dramatic, just enough to feel intimate. Deliberate. My stomach twisted violently. Whoever was doing this wasn't just playing mind games in the mall. They were escalating, closing in, pushing me somewhere I didn't yet understand. I read the sentence again. You're already too late. Too late for what? Too late to stop the lie? Too late to stop tonight's disappearance? Too late for the marriage? Too late for her? A shiver ran through me. I stared at the door, half expecting another envelope to come sliding underneath. A fourth, a fifth, a flood. But nothing moved. The world stayed eerily still. I stepped back, clutching the envelope too tightly, feeling the corners dig into my skin. For a few minutes I just stood there, unsure of what to do, torn between panic and numbness. Eventually, survival instinct took over. I grabbed my keys. The roads were empty at this hour. Midnight had long passed, and even the bars were quiet. Streetlights blurred as I drove, my thoughts spinning faster than the tires against asphalt. Where was Sa? Who was sending the letters? Why me? Why now? And the question I feared most, was she safe? Despite everything, the lies, the distance, the warnings, part of me still ached with the possibility that she might be in trouble, not betraying me. Maybe these letters weren't about infidelity. Maybe they were about danger. But the shadow in my chest whispered something else. You know what this is. You just don't want to say it yet. I drove past the street that led to her father's shop, dark, closed, as always by 6. I drove past the gym she never visited. I drove past a co-worker Maria's apartment building, wondering if Sarah might be inside, laughing, alive, innocent. I even passed the hotel near the business district. I slowed. The neon sign flickered, buzzing faintly. A single couple stood under the awning, the woman leaning into the man's shoulder, both of them laughing softly before disappearing inside. My throat tightened painfully. What if Sarah was here? What if the anonymous warnings weren't threats, just truth she hadn't told me? What if the lies had already grown teeth? I didn't go inside. I told myself I wouldn't recognize her car anyway. The lie tasted sour. At 2:18 a.m., I parked outside her office building. It stood like an abandoned concrete skeleton, dark windows, empty parking lot, an eerie stillness that made the hairs on my arms rise. Sarah's car wasn't there, but something else caught my eye. One window on the second floor glowed faintly. A single office light. The rest of the building was swallowed in darkness except for that one patch of illumination. I found myself walking toward it without thinking, the cold night air biting through my jacket. The front door was locked, but the side entrance, the one employees used to smoke during breaks, was slightly ajar, a crack wide enough for someone to slip through. My pulse roared in my ears. I pushed the door open slowly, swallowing the swell of dread rising in my chest. The hallway beyond was dim, lit only by the exit sign of the far end. My footsteps echoed as I moved, each one sounding louder than the last. The building felt wrong, like I was somewhere I didn't belong, somewhere someone didn't want me. I climbed the stairs quietly, avoiding the spots that creaked. The glowing office was at the end of the hallway. Its door was closed, light leaking through the gap beneath it. My hand hovered above the handle. Before I touched it, I noticed something else, just a tiny detail, but enough to freeze me solid. On the floor, near the base of the door, lay a small scrap of the same cream-colored paper used in the letters. Torn, curled, deliberately placed. I crouched, picking it up slowly. One typed word. Closer. My blood ran cold. This wasn't random. This wasn't chaotic. This wasn't impulsive. Someone wanted me here. Someone had been anticipating my movement step by step. My hand shook as I reached for the doorknob. It turned easily. When I pushed the door open, the office wasn't empty. A chair was pulled away from the desk, facing the window. A jacket, Sarah's jacket, hung over the back of it. Her lavender scarf lay on the floor. Her phone sat abandoned on the desk. Screen cracked across the corner. And on the keyboard, another envelope, not like the others. This one was thicker, heavier, sealed with a dark wax stamp pressed into a symbol I didn't recognize. A symbol that looked vaguely like an eye. My heart slammed against my ribs. I reached for the envelope with trembling fingers, the room spinning slightly. Just as I touched it, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. The sudden sound made me jump. I grabbed it, breath sharp in my throat. Unknown number. No message, just a call. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My thumb hovered over the answer button. The vibration echoed through the silent office, the sound unnervingly loud. Finally, I swiped to answer and lifted the phone to my ear. I expected silence, or breathing, or static. I didn't expect a voice. Not distorted, not disguised. A man's voice. Soft, calm, unhurried, as if he was smiling. Stop looking for her, the voice said. My grip tightened. Where is she? A quiet breath, almost a sigh. I warned you. You're too late. My pulse hammered faster. If you hurt her... She made her choice, he interrupted gently. And now you're making yours. What are you talking about? A beat of silence. I've been helping you, he said. Preparing you. For what? I whispered. For the truth. My chest constricted so tightly it hurt to inhale. You'll find your next letter in her car, the voice said. But don't be angry with her. She didn't betray you tonight. I froze. She betrayed you months ago. My breath hitched. The line went dead. The dial tone echoed into the empty office like a final judgment. I stood motionless, the phone cold against my ear, the words ricocheting inside my skull. She betrayed you months ago. When I finally lowered the phone, my gaze drifted back to the wax-sealed envelope on the desk. It felt like it was waiting for me, calling me. I reached for it, but before I could touch it, footsteps sounded at the far end of the hallway. Slow, measured, approaching, growing closer. I turned toward the doorway, fear lodging itself deep in my throat. And then the lights in the hallway flickered violently, plunging the office into darkness. For a moment after the lights died, there was no sound, just the hollow thud of my heartbeat and the faint hum of the building's old ventilation system rattling somewhere deep in the walls. Then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, getting closer with each soft tap against the worn linoleum. My breath froze in my chest. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to know anything. I wasn't supposed to hear that unknown man's voice telling me she betrayed me months ago. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. It was something else, something orchestrated, calculated, and suffocatingly precise. The footsteps stopped right outside the office door. I stayed completely still, muscles locked, as though the slightest movement might give me away. The darkness wasn't complete. The faint glow from the city lights outside filtered through the blinds, casting thin stripes across the walls and floor. The handle of the door rattled softly. My pulse leapt to my throat. Someone was on the other side, watching, listening, waiting. I stepped backward slowly, my shoe brushing against something on the floor. The scarf. Sarah's lavender scarf. The one she wore when she didn't want to bother with a jacket. The one I had bought for her on our trip to the coast last winter, when she kissed me under the pier and told me she couldn't imagine loving anyone else. The memory cut like a blade. The doorknob twitched again. My eyes darted to the only other light source, the faint glow from the computer monitor. Was it possible? Could it still be on? I moved closer. My vision adjusted enough to see a smudge of light where the monitor faced the wall. The computer was asleep, not off. Someone had been here recently, maybe still was. The footsteps outside shifted, as if the person leaned closer to the door. A hand pressed against the wood. I saw the faint outline of fingers through the frosted strip along the door frame. I held my breath. Then, nothing. The hand withdrew. The footsteps faded. Down the hallway, away from the office. I waited, and waited. Counted to 30, to 60, to 100. Only when I was sure the hallway was empty did I move toward the door, placing my ear against it. Silence, but the kind of silence that felt intentional. I opened the door a fraction. The hallway stretched in both directions, long, dim, empty. But something new lay on the floor just a few feet away. Another envelope, smaller, thinner, marked with a tiny 4 in the corner. My stomach lurched. The sender was keeping count, keeping track, watching my progress. My hand shook slightly as I bent down and picked it up. Inside was a single slip of paper, typed, precise. Do not open the wax-sealed letter until you see her car. A chill raced through me. The voice on the phone had already told me the next letter was in her car. Whoever this was, whoever had been guiding me, they wanted me to follow a specific order, a specific experience. This wasn't chaos. It was choreography, a slow, psychological unraveling. I swallowed hard and stepped into the hallway. Every part of me screamed to get out of this building, away from the footsteps, away from the shadows, away from the feeling of someone watching me through the dark like I was the center of their twisted focus. When I reached the stairwell door, a whisper of cold air drifted down from the exit. I didn't look back. Outside, the night felt colder than before, sharp, almost metallic. My breath fogged in front of me. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped the steering wheel. Her car. I kept replaying the sentence. You'll find your next letter in her car. But where was her car? She hadn't driven home. She wasn't here at the office. She wasn't at her father's shop. She wasn't at the gym. That left only 2 possibilities. The hotel, or somewhere worse. I started the engine. As I pulled out of the parking lot, my phone buzzed again. Another message. Same unknown number. This one was just coordinates. A location near the outskirts of the city, an old industrial zone. My breath caught. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. I drove. The farther I went, the emptier the roads became. Streetlights thinned out until only darkness stretched on either side. Abandoned warehouses rose like quiet giants in the night. The coordinates led me to a fenced-off lot with a broken gate. A sign hung crookedly on the chain link. Authorized personnel only. Closed since 2019. I drove through the gap in the gate and cut the engine. The silence was suffocating. And then I saw it, parked near the back of the lot, illuminated faintly by my headlights. Sar's car. My heart hammered. I scrambled out of the vehicle, gravel crunching under my feet. The wind cut across the open space, sending a shiver up my spine. Her car was empty. Driver's seat pushed back slightly, like someone told her had used it last. One of the doors wasn't fully shut. A sickening dread twisted in my gut. With slow steps, I approached, my breath fogging the glass. Inside, on the passenger seat, lay an envelope, cream-colored, neat, waiting. I opened the door. The stale warmth of the interior hit me, a faint smell of her perfume mixed with something else I couldn't place. The envelope had a number on it. They were counted, organized, prepared. My throat tightened as I picked it up. Inside was a single line. Do not call the police. If you do, you'll never see her again. My knees almost buckled. This wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't just betrayal. It was something orchestrated, something planned, something dangerous. I stepped back from the car, chest heaving. The industrial lot was silent, too silent, until a faint, metallic clink echoed from somewhere behind the row of warehouses. My breath hitched. Someone was here, watching, waiting, guiding, hunting. I turned toward the noise and saw a figure move between the shadows. Tall, deliberate, slow, not running, not hiding, just letting me see them. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Where is she? I shouted, voice cracking through the cold air. The figure didn't answer, didn't approach, just lifted an arm, pointing, directly behind me. I turned sharply and froze. On the ground near Sar's car, something glinted faintly. A thin trail of drops, dark, dried, leading toward the farthest warehouse. A trail of blood. My breath left me. And at the end of the trail, a door, slightly open, a faint glow inside. A trap, a warning, an invitation, maybe all three. My legs moved before my mind caught up. Toward the warehouse, toward the open door, toward whatever waited inside, toward the truth. I didn't sleep. Not really. My eyes closed, but my mind never shut down. The anonymous letters, the timestamps, Claire's odd behavior, the way she looked at her phone like it buzzed with secrets, it all kept replaying like someone was stitching clues together inside my skull with barbed wire. By dawn, I looked like a man who had fought with ghosts all night and lost. Claire was already up. She was standing at the kitchen counter, pouring coffee, humming softly to herself, an unfamiliar tune, not the kind she usually hummed when she was relaxed. This one was faster, almost jittery, a melody that didn't match the hour or her usual calmness. "Morning," she said without turning. "You up early?" "Couldn't sleep," I replied. She poured a second cup, mine, and set it in front of me without meeting my eyes. Avoidant, again, her way of maintaining peace while hiding something beneath it. "I'm going to the office early today," she said. "Budget review." "On a Saturday?" I asked. She froze. Just a slight pause. Barely a second. But I saw it. "No, sorry, I meant prep for Monday," she corrected quickly. "I just want to get it out of the way." Lie. Not a big one, but a lie. Claire never prepped on weekends. Never. She guarded her weekends like a fortress, insisting they were our time. She even got irritated when co-workers texted her on Saturdays. Why would she suddenly go in early today? The answer hit me the way cold water hits a wound, because the next letter said she would, and because something was going to happen there. I didn't show the Saturday letter to her yesterday. I kept it hidden, but the timeline replayed in my head again. Today's date, today's warning. Tomorrow morning she will leave early. She will say it's for work. Follow her if you want the truth. My stomach tightened into a hard knot. Claire took her keys off the hook and slipped on her shoes. "I won't be long," she said brightly. "Maybe an hour or two." "Want company?" I asked. It was a test I already knew the answer to. She laughed lightly. "You? In my office? You'd fall asleep on my desk." "Maybe," I said, "but I could bring you breakfast." "I'll grab something on the way." Another lie. She never ate breakfast unless I cooked it. My chest tightened. It hurt to keep pretending, but I needed to. If I confronted her too early, I might lose the truth and everything else. She kissed my cheek. Quick, distant, like kissing a relative. Then she walked out. The door shut. My pulse hammered. I waited exactly 30 seconds, grabbed my jacket, and followed. The following, Clay's car pulled out of our driveway and headed down the street. I didn't follow too closely, just enough to keep her bumper in sight. The roads were quiet, the sky still heavy with dawn. Streetlights blinked out one by one as if the world was waking cautiously. She didn't turn toward her office. She turned in the opposite direction, toward the older part of town, toward Maplehurst, a residential area, a place with small houses, overgrown hedges, peeling paint. I kept my distance. My heart beat too fast, a drum pounding warnings I didn't want to hear. Every street she turned onto carved another piece off my sanity. Finally, she pulled to a stop in front of a small, single-story house with faded blue siding and a crooked mailbox. She got out, and so did someone else. A man, tall, slim, dark hair, wearing a hoodie, and familiar. Shock slammed into my lungs, knocking the air out. It was the same man from the gym hallway, the man from 2 letters ago, the one who watched her, the one who smiled at her like he already knew her. He stepped out of the house's front door and walked fast toward her. Too fast, like he'd been waiting. Claire didn't hesitate. She didn't flinch. She hugged him, a tight, lingering hug, her head tucked against his shoulder, his hand gripping her waist. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles cracked. The hug lasted too long. Then they walked inside together, the door closing behind them. Every atom in my body screamed to run to that house and tear the door down, to drag them both out, to ask questions that would bury me. But the anonymous letter's final line echoed again and again. You must see everything before you confront her. Otherwise, she will lie. So I stayed. I parked a block away. I waited. Minutes crawled by. 10, 20, 30. My pulse had climbed into dangerous territory. My hands were shaking, my vision blurring at the edges. Fury, heartbreak, and dread built in layers like sediment crushing me. And then, a knock on my window. I jumped so hard I hit my head on the roof. A mail carrier stood outside my car, frowning. "Delivery for Daniel Hayes?" he asked. My breath stopped. Another letter, delivered here, to me, at this exact location, at this exact moment. Thanks," I muttered, taking it with trembling fingers. He walked away. The envelope was warm from his hand, and for a moment I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My hands were numb, like I was holding something radioactive. I opened it, and my entire world lurched sideways. The new letter. This one was typed, like the others, but shorter, sharper, more cruelly precise. You are not watching your wife cheat. You are watching her save someone she loves. Do not interrupt. Do not confront. Do not enter the house. If you do, the truth will destroy you both. My heart stopped. Completely. I read it again, slower. Save someone she loves? Who? What did that even mean? The man in the hoodie? Her secret lover? No. That made no sense. Save him from what? Then another line punched me. If you do, the truth will destroy you both. What truth? What could possibly be worse than an affair? 1,000 possibilities flashed through my mind. A sibling she never told me about. A blackmailer. A secret addiction. A debt. A child. My chest tightened painfully. But then I noticed something else. Something I had somehow missed in my panic. The envelope wasn't sealed with glue like the others. It had been sealed with tape. Clear packing tape. Cheap, fast, rushed. And the return address. There wasn't one, just a faint watermark. A watermark from a hotel near her workplace. My brain snapped into overdrive. The letters were not being mailed by a stranger stalking us. The letters were not coming from some hidden psychic observer predicting the future. The letters. My pulse raced. My stomach dropped in a sickening freefall. The letters could be coming from someone who knew our schedule. Someone who knew where I'd be. Someone who knew Claire's movements. Someone close. Too close. My breathing hitched. My peripheral vision narrowed. And then, suddenly, I felt the weight of realization hovering, waiting, ready to crush me. What if Claire wasn't cheating? What if the letters themselves were the betrayal? Someone was manipulating me, pushing me, steering me like a puppet. And for the first time since all this began, a terrifying thought clawed its way through my mind. What if the letters weren't warnings? What if they were instructions? A car door slammed somewhere behind me, snapping my attention back to the house. Movement. Claire and the man step outside. Claire looked shaken, really shaken. Her face pale, eyes red, posture stiff with fear or guilt or something deeper. The man put a hand on her shoulder. She brushed it off. Then she got in her car. He stayed on the porch, watching her go, watching her drive toward me, toward the street I was parked on, toward the truth. I shoved the letter under my leg as she pulled onto the road. She didn't see me, but I saw her face clearly now. She wasn't glowing with the thrill of forbidden affection. She wasn't flushed from a secret rendezvous. She was terrified. She was crying. Her hands were shaking. And in that moment, something inside me shifted sharply. The betrayal wasn't as clear as I thought. The lines were not black and white. Nothing about this was simple. Something bigger was happening. Something dangerous. And someone, somewhere, wanted me to see only pieces of it. Broken pieces. Pieces sharp enough to cut me open. Claire's car turned toward home. I followed again, but slower, my mind racing ahead of the wheels. One thing was certain now. The truth wasn't just coming. It was about to crash violently into our lives. And part 6 would be the impact. Claire drove home with her hazards blinking. She wasn't speeding, but her car swayed slightly in its lane, like her hands trembled too much to steer straight. Once or twice, the brake lights flared for no reason. It wasn't the driving of a woman relieved after visiting a secret lover. It was the driving of someone who had just heard something devastating. Or delivered it. Or both. I stayed behind 2 cars, far enough not to be noticed. When she turned into our driveway, she sat in her parked car for a full minute before getting out. Shoulders slumped, head bowed. She wiped at her face with her sleeves. She looked guilty, but not guilty of cheating. Guilty of hiding something dark and heavy and dangerous. When she finally stepped inside the house, I didn't follow immediately. My mind was sprinting ahead of my actions. The letter in my pocket felt alive, pulsing like a second heartbeat. You are watching her save someone she loves. Save who? And from what? And why the hell would someone send me a letter warning me not to confront her? Why guide me? Why push me forward and yank me back? I waited 5 minutes, then entered. Claire sat at the kitchen table, elbows on her knees, hands gripping her head. She didn't even look up when I walked in. Claire! Her breath hitched. Hey! She whispered. Her voice sounded as if it had been dragged across gravel. You're back early, I said carefully. Yeah. She swallowed. I didn't feel well. She looked up, and her eyes were puffy, rimmed with red. Her eyelashes clumped from tears. Fear stabbed at me. Not fear of betrayal. Fear of something worse. What happened? I asked gently. She hesitated, too long, before answering. Work stress. Just everything. Lie. But not the same kind of lie. A lie to protect something. I sat opposite her. Her hands were shaking. I reached for them, and for the first time in years, she pulled away. That hurt more than the anonymous letters. Claire, I said softly, something's wrong. I know it. Her jaw clenched. She stood abruptly, walked to the sink, and turned on the tap as if she needed noise, any noise, to keep her own thoughts away. It's nothing, she said. Just tired. A lie so thin it broke as she said it. Her reflection in the window showed more truth than her words. Fear, guilt, and something else. Grief. Dan, she said suddenly, voice cracking. Can I ask you something? Something serious. Of course. She gripped the counter until her knuckles whitened. If I ever made a mistake, a really, really big mistake, but it was because I thought I had no choice, would you still love me? The question sliced through me. Claire, what mistake? She shook her head violently. Forget it. I shouldn't have asked. She turned the tap off and walked past me quickly, like she needed to escape her own question. I didn't stop her, because something in her face chilled me. She wasn't asking if I would love her after an affair. She was asking if I could love her after something unforgivable. I stood there for a long moment, trying to breathe through the tightening in my lungs. Then I remembered the letter waiting under my jacket in the car. I slipped outside, grabbed it, and locked myself in my office. I read it again, and again, and again. Save someone she loves. Do not enter. If you do, the truth will destroy you both. What truth? Every scenario tore through my brain. Then a pattern emerged, something small but undeniable. The letters were only ever correct about one thing. Claire's future actions. Not mine, not anyone else's. Only hers. As if the writer had access specifically to her upcoming decisions. Meaning the writer knew her. Intimately. Closely. Someone who saw her before I did. Someone who heard from her before I could. Someone who watched her patterns. A co-worker? A friend? Her sister? A therapist? Or someone darker? Someone manipulating her as much as me. My thoughts spiraled until a dull thud sounded against the front door. I jumped. Footsteps. A pause. Then, another envelope slid under the door. I stared at it, frozen. Slow, deliberate footsteps retreated down the porch steps. My heart hammered as I approached the envelope. My fingers felt numb as I tore the seal. This letter had only one line, typed in the same cold, precise font. It begins tonight. My blood turned to ice. What begins? What starts? I bolted to the window, but all I saw was the back of a person walking quickly down the street, hood up, shoulders hunched. Too far to see the face. Too fast to follow without losing them. I closed the blinds, chest tightening again. Tonight, whatever was coming, whatever was building, whatever Claire was hiding, it would all peak tonight. The rest of the day, Claire spent the day moving like a ghost. She attempted normalcy, laundry, dishes, small talk, but repeated movements didn't sync with her thoughts. She folded the same towel twice, filled the dishwasher without soap, stirred cold soup for minutes like she was hypnotized. I watched her without being obvious. She kept checking her phone, not for messages, for time. Her eyes flicked to the clock every 15 to 20 minutes. She was waiting for something. At 5:02 p.m., her phone buzzed, a silent vibration. She froze completely. She didn't answer it. She didn't touch it. She simply stared at the screen, then turned the phone face down and walked away. I waited until she left the room, then casually leaned close enough to see the notification. A name, or rather, a single initial, J. My blood roared in my ears, not because I recognized a letter, but because I remembered something. On the man's hoodie, the one from Maplehurst, there was embroidered lettering on the breast, a stylized letter, a white stitch J. My stomach dropped so fast I felt sick. Who the hell was J? And what did he have over Claire? Because something told me, deep in my bones, that whatever she was doing for him, she wasn't doing willingly. Evening by evening, tension hung in the air like humidity. Claire made dinner, poorly, and barely touched the food. She asked me 3 times if I planned on going out later. I said no every time. On the 3rd time, her face fell for just a microsecond, and my heart sank. She needed me out of the house. Why? At 8:41 p.m., she changed clothes, quietly, quickly, and put on a jacket. Not her usual jacket, one I hadn't seen in years. A thick dark one with deep pockets. I heard her keys jingle. She was leaving. Where are you going? I asked from the hallway. She jumped. almost dropped her keys. "Oh, just groceries," she said too quickly. "We're out of milk." "We have 2 cartons," I replied quietly. "Oh, right. I meant eggs. We have a dozen." She swallowed hard, then forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Dan, please. I'll be back in 20 minutes." I stepped closer. "Claire," I whispered, "whatever's going on, you can tell me." Her eyes filled instantly with tears she refused to let fall. "No," she whispered, "I can't." And then, "But please, please, don't follow me tonight." My heart dropped into my stomach. My pulse slammed. "Claire, please," she repeated desperately. "Trust me. This one night. Just this once." I stared at her. She stared at me. Something inside her was breaking, and something inside me was screaming. But the letter in my pocket echoed over everything. "It begins tonight." Claire stepped out, closed the door, and for 3 full seconds I stood in the hallway, paralyzed. Then I grabbed my keys and followed, because I knew tonight was the night the truth would finally stop hiding. The night swallowed Claire's car as soon as she turned off our street. I kept my headlights off for the first 2 blocks, coasting far enough behind her that she wouldn't see me in the mirrors. The roads were dim and mostly empty, and the farther she drove, the more I felt something tightening around my throat, like the night itself was bracing for impact. Claire didn't drive toward any grocery store. She headed back toward Maplehurst. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. My breath grew shallow. The anonymous letter wasn't a warning. It was a countdown. It begins tonight. Whatever it was, whatever she had been hiding, whatever the stranger Jay had pulled her into, it all converged in the same place she'd already gone that morning. The small, faded blue house. The place she had hugged him. The place the letters had led me to. As she turned onto the street, I slowed even more. Her car stopped in front of the house again, but she didn't get out immediately. She sat there, gripping the wheel, her shoulders hunched in a posture I recognized. Fear. Deep, consuming fear. After about 30 seconds, she stepped out. She didn't bother to close her door quietly this time. She was too shaken to care. She walked up the path toward the house, wiping her face once, twice, like she had to steel herself before knocking. But she didn't need to knock. The door opened before she reached it. Jay stood there. Same hoodie, same posture, same eyes that looked far too familiar with her. But tonight, something was different in him too. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't calm or charming or coy. He looked rattled, scared. He grabbed her arm and practically yanked her inside. The door shut. Lights flickered behind the curtains. I parked farther down, heart hammering so violently I could barely breathe. Every instinct screamed at me to go to her, to kick the door open, to drag her out of whatever nightmare she'd walked into. But something colder, something crueler inside me whispered, if you go in too soon, you'll destroy everything. You need to know the whole truth. You need to know what she's been doing, who she's been doing it for, why she didn't tell you, and why someone kept sending me letters before any of this happened. So I waited. The seconds felt like teeth cutting into my skin. A shadow passed by the window inside the house. Raised voices. A crash. Claire shouting something muffled and sharp. I was out of the car in an instant, walking fast toward the house before I even realized my legs were moving. I reached the porch steps and froze. Another sound. A phone buzzing in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting Claire, or a new text from a number I didn't recognize. But it wasn't a text. It was a call. No name. Just a number blocked out completely. Unknown caller. My heart thudded. I answered. A voice, distorted, mechanical, deliberately altered, whispered, "Do not go inside, Daniel." My blood iced over. Who is this? I hissed. You weren't supposed to follow her, the voice said. Not yet. Who are you? I demanded, louder. You need to see what happens on its own. If you interfere, the entire chain breaks. What chain? The voice paused. Then, if you enter that house, you will change everything, and she will never forgive you. My mouth went dry. Tell me the truth. I began. The line cut. Dead. Just a faint click, and then silence. I stared at the dark screen, heart pounding in my ears. Another letter delivered earlier. Another warning. Another precise prediction. Don't enter. Not yet. The back of my neck crawled. Someone was guiding me and watching us both. But who? And why? Before I could spiral, the house's front door opened again. Claire came out first, almost stumbling. She wasn't crying this time. She was talking fast, her voice urgent, panicked. Jay followed her out, grabbing her wrist. She pulled away. Hard. No, you don't get to control this, she shouted. His voice carried across the quiet street. Claire, stop. Just listen. No, she snapped. I listened for too long. I'm done hiding. I'm done covering for you. Covering? For him? I moved closer, staying hidden behind a tree in the neighbor's yard. I strained every nerve to hear their words. Jay stepped closer to her, lowering his tone. Claire, if he finds out the wrong way. He deserves the truth, she said fiercely. All of it. My stomach twisted. Jay let out a humorless laugh. You think the truth's going to save anything? Yes, she said. At least it's real. Jay ran a hand over his face. Real doesn't mean safe. I don't care, she whispered. He grabbed her shoulders. Claire, he's not ready. I whispered from the shadows. Claire's voice dropped, shaking. I can't live with the lies anymore. Jay glanced around nervously, eyes scanning the street. He was looking for me. He expected me. He actually expected me to be here. Fine, he said, but not here, not outside. She pulled back. No, I'm not letting you talk me out of this again. He deserves the truth. All of it. Jay cursed under his breath, sharp, frustrated. Then, Claire, if you tell him everything, he'll never look at you the same way again. A broken laugh escaped her. He already doesn't. Something inside me cracked open. She thought that. She truly thought that. Jay shook his head. This will destroy him. No, she said. The secret's already did. I stepped into the street before I realized what I was doing. Claire. Her head snapped toward my voice. Her breath caught. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, pure terror flickered inside them. Not fear of me. Fear of what came next. Dan. Her voice broke. Why are you? I walked forward slowly. You said you didn't want me to follow you. I said quietly. You begged me. She closed her eyes in pain. I did. Why? She didn't answer. Jay stepped slightly in front of her, protective, instinctively protective. Stay back, Daniel, he said. Not tonight. Who the hell are you? I demanded. He didn't flinch. I'm the one trying to keep your life from falling apart. My jaw clenched. By sending anonymous letters? By telling me my wife is cheating. His face twisted. What? I never sent. Claire grabbed his arm, pulling him back. Jay, stop. I stared at them both. You didn't send the letters. I asked him directly. He blinked. Letters? Claire's whole body tensed. Dan, she whispered. Please, don't. I stepped closer, voice shaking. Someone has been warning me about you, I said to her. Telling me you'd leave early. Telling me you'd meet him. Telling me not to confront you. Telling me you're saving someone you love. Telling me tonight everything begins. Claire's face drained to color. Jay swore under his breath. Jesus Christ. Claire, he knows. Knows what? I demanded. Claire shook her head violently. Dan, please, just go home. Please, please, just once. Do what I'm asking. Tonight only. Not happening, I said. Silence fell. A thick, suffocating silence. Then Claire whispered the words that shattered the ground beneath me. Dan, here's my brother. The night froze. The world froze. My heartbeat stopped. Jay, her brother? Her brother? My thoughts stuttered, failing to process. Brothers don't hug like that. Brothers don't meet in secret. Brothers don't. My mind reeled. Jay stepped forward, voice low. And if you don't go home right now, both of you are going to die tonight. The words landed like a physical blow. Here's my brother. They made the night tilt. Streetlight halo smeared. My knees went soft. For an instant the world simplified into the absurd image of them as siblings. Siblings who met in secret, who hugged with a tenderness that had looked like betrayal in the crosshairs of my suspicion. But the next sentence cut through whatever relief might have formed. And if you don't go home right now, both of you are going to die tonight. Claire's hand clamped over her mouth as if to stop herself from making the panic audible. Her breathing hitched in quick little gasps. Jay's face had gone ashen. The hoodie fell away from his neck like a man suddenly unmasked. "You're scaring him," Claire hissed at Jay. Her voice was venom wrapped in fear. "You can't say that here." He didn't answer her. He looked at me, the man who hadn't slept in days, like he was measuring whether I could be trusted to keep a secret or to break and run and scream down every street in the city. "Talk, now," I said. My voice felt foreign in my own mouth, rough and loud. Jay glanced at Claire, then back at me. "You don't have long," he said. "They check. They count. They notice patterns. They'll know if you stay." "Who are they?" I asked. My hands were suddenly ice. Everything taut inside me, memory, fear, the letters, felt like a wire stretched to the snapping point. "People who don't forgive mistakes," Jay said. "People who collect debts in ways that don't go through courts." "Debt collectors," I said, incredulous. He laughed, and it sounded ugly and small. "Things don't always happen because of money. Sometimes they happen because of timing, because someone overheard, because an accident left a body and someone else needed saving." Claire inhaled sharply, and for the first time that night, she looked truly broken. "He's not a criminal," she said. "He's never been." "Not by choice," Jay cut in, not unkindly. "By life, by accident, by hospital corridors and choices you make when there's no good option. How come you never told me he existed?" My voice finally rose. I tasted the raw edges of betrayal again. "How come you never said you had a brother hiding in the wings of our life?" She looked at me with a tiredness that went far beyond this moment. "I was ashamed," she said. "It wasn't just that he existed. It was how he survived. You should have known. I thought I could protect you from it. From him. From what he carried." "Protect me from what?" I asked. My hands clenched and unclenched at my sides. Fear and anger braided together into a tight, hot thing behind my ribs. "From having to choose," she said. "From watching me choose." Jay stepped back, the porch light outlining him in a halo of uneasy gold. "Look," he said. "There's someone after me. It's a long story. Dark. Old. I made mistakes when I was younger. People collected. They let me live in exchange for silence." He flicked a glance at Claire that was more apology than explanation. "She's been paying them back." Paying them back. The phrase did not compute. My mind, muzzy from sleep deprivation and the raw nerve of suspicion, tried to form the arithmetic of it. Money? Favors? Lies? Claire's tears, when they came, flowed without ceremony. "Not money," she whispered. "I do things. For them. Things to keep them from taking him." My stomach turned over. The city night felt suddenly smaller, like a fishbowl, claustrophobic, glassy, impossible to escape. "What things?" I demanded. She blinked, as if the question forced light into spaces she'd been keeping dark for years. "Information, sometimes. Help other people who need places. She swallowed. "I drive. I pick up. I lie. I make calls. I sign false receipts at work. I tell white lies and sometimes black ones. I keep a ledger in my head of favors and debts and who gets shielded and when. I thought I was doing the right thing, protecting a boy who was left to me when our mother died. Protecting family." "How long?" I asked. "How long has this been going on?" "Years," Claire said. "Since before we met, maybe. Since before you walked into my life and taught me the tiny illusions of trust. Before I could see anything but this ledger in my hands. I made a promise to keep him safe. And now," I said, "now you're sneaking into houses, hugging him on porches, sending him away, asking me not to follow." Her face crumpled. I didn't think it would. She stopped. Her voice folded. I didn't think you'd notice the pieces. Jay's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, nearer to me as if proximity would anchor something. They are not stupid, he said. When you keep secrets, someone always finds the seams. My mind returned, unbidden, to the letters, the handwriting that mimicked mine, the precise knowledge of where she'd be and when, the wax seal with its small eye. Someone had been calibrating our lives like an instrument. Someone had been counting and writing and deciding which truths I would see and in what order. Who sent them? I demanded. Who's orchestrating this? Claire looked at the ground. For a moment she could not speak. Then she said, voice thin as wire, we thought we knew. We thought there was a man who offered to help us. Years ago, a man with a soft voice. He said he could make people forget. He said he could cover tracks. We accepted a favor. We accepted that he'd ask things in return. Someone at the edge of the law, Jay added. A fixer. Someone who collects and farms favors. He started small. He would advise when it was safe to move a package or shift a story. Then he wanted proof. Then he wanted silence. You can't bargain with those people without feeding them more. My throat closed. So is the one? The letters? We don't know if it's him, Claire said. We think it's him, or someone who works for him, or someone angling to take his place. But the letters are a control method, a way to direct emotion, to surveil, provoke, and then step in with an explanation that makes you accept what you saw. You mean, to make me see her hugging him and assume the worst so I confront her, and in the chaos they could, what, remove someone? Make it worse. The idea tasted like bile. Jay's face tightened. They want chaos that looks personal. That way the law stays away. They want us reacting like animals. They want us to fracture. That makes us easier to manage. For a while none of us spoke. The night exhaled a long, quiet breath. Somewhere a car went by. A dog barked in the distance. Up close, the world held only the three of us in a secret that had been chewing at the edges of our marriage for years without either of us realizing the depth of the hole. I thought about the love she'd said once, the one she'd asked if I could still offer after a mistake. Could I? Could I love a woman who'd guarded a ledger of favors and debts? A woman who'd engineered safety through deception? A woman who'd kept a brother in shadows? My answer came not in words, but in the feeling of standing there, bones tired, still leaning toward her because something inside refused to let go. Maybe I was stubborn. Maybe I was stupid. Or maybe love, when it's real, is porous enough to let truth in and still survive. Why the red smear? I asked suddenly, the smear on the envelope I'd picked up at midnight the first night. The detail had nagged me, a small splinter lodged under my skin. Claire's eyes went distant. It's a mark, she said. A signal. To him. To them. To tell them we complied. To tell them a handoff happened. It's ritual. They like ritual. They say it keeps things clean. Clean. I echoed. Her jaw tightened. That's what they call it. My stomach turned at the cold mechanism of it. My wife, my partner, had been teaching herself to live with ritual scrawled into the margins of her days. And the wax seal? I asked. The eye? Jay shook his head. A signature of the group. A badge. A warning that someone is watching. I looked at Claire. She folded in on herself like she wanted to crawl back into the smallness of before. You could have told me, I said. We could have figured out a way together. She flinched as if I had struck her. I couldn't risk it, she said. You don't understand what that man can do. He has friends in places you wouldn't believe. He took one look at me and said, we'll make it right, but silence first. And I swallowed that poison so my brother could live. The notion of silence as salvation made my stomach heave. Outside, a car door slammed down the block. Under the porch light, the shadows seemed longer, like fingers reaching for us. Jay's voice cut through the hush. You should go, Daniel. Now. My gut pushed back. No, not until I know more. He met my gaze with something fierce. Then promise me you won't make a scene. Not tonight. Not in front of them. If you want answers, let me arrange them. I can take us to the man. I can make contact. I can try to cut the chain. Or you could hand them over to the police. I said, the words scraping out. Jay laughed, sharp and hollow. You think reporting this will stop it? You think the police don't have their own blind spots? This isn't extortion with a phone call. It's embedded. He spat the last word like a curse. No, we go to him our way. Clay's hand found mine, squeezing with a desperation that made me ache. Please, she begged, please let him try. We need to survive this. We owe him that. I looked at them, two people bound by blood and debt, and then at the thin night air swallowing our words. The letters had been a cruel puppet show. Someone had been pulling strings at the edges of our life, orchestrating pain to keep control. For the first time since the envelopes began, the outline of a plan formed. We would play the part they expected, gather whatever evidence we could, and then try to make a direct move on the man who had started it all. But even as I agreed, quietly, with the weight of a man who had been pushed to the edge of himself, I understood that we were stepping onto a slippery slope. Whoever this man was, he had already taught us the language of fear. And tonight, the next move in his quiet game would begin. The plan formed quicker than sanity could argue against it. Not a perfect plan. Not even a good one. Just a direction. A step into the dark instead of standing still and waiting for the next letter to arrive like a curse. Jay motioned toward the street. We can't talk here, he said. Eyes everywhere. Where? I asked. He jerked his chin toward the corner. There's a warehouse 2 blocks down. Safe enough. Blind spots in the cameras. They built it before surveillance got cheap. Clay's grip tightened on my wrist. Daniel, if we go with him, there's no turning back. We'll be in it. Fully. We've been in it, I said. I just didn't know. She flinched, guilt, grief, recognition. All the years of silent compromises twisting through her expression like knots. We walked, not together, not like a couple, not like allies, but like 3 people carrying different pieces of a single, heavy secret. The night air had teeth, cold, sharp, matching the tension between our steps. Houses blinked past, lit windows flickering with domestic peace that looked like fiction. My heart rattled in my chest, every beat a hammer. We reached the warehouse. It looked abandoned, rusted siding, boarded windows, graffiti on the doors. But Jay punched in the code on a hidden keypad behind a drain pipe. The metal lock clicked open. Inside, it was dim and empty, the smell of dust and machine oil thick in the air. Concrete floor, exposed rafters, a metal table pushed against the far wall. This is where I earned my first debt, Jay said quietly. Years ago. Claire winced. He leaned against the table. All right. We talk fast. Then I go make contact. I cross my arms. Start from the beginning. Jay nodded. Fine. He took a long breath, then began. They call him Harrow. The name hung in the air like a blade. He's not a kingpin, Jay said. Not a mafia guy. Not a gangster with gold chains. He's worse. He doesn't want fame. He wants leverage, influence, secrets. Claire added softly. He fixes problems, cleans messes, moves people, changes narratives. People go to him, Jay continued, when they are desperate, when they need something erased, hidden, paid off, or covered up. But his help is never free, and he never forgets a debt. My pulse spiked, and you went to him. Jay's eyes darkened. Not intentionally. I got into a bad accident when I was 22. Hit someone. Wrong time, wrong road, wrong night. I wasn't drunk, but I was stupid and fast. The guy survived, but barely. Harrow showed up before the police. He told me what to say, who to call, how to walk out with a slap on the wrist. And the cost? I asked. Jay exhaled. Claire. My blood went cold. Claire's voice trembled. He told Jay he couldn't pay alone, that family shares burdens. I was 18, just started nursing school. Our mother had just died. There wasn't anywhere to run. Her breath hitched, so I said yes. I told Harrow I'd do whatever task he asked, just nothing that involved hurting people physically. He agreed. My stomach twisted. The woman I spent years loving, a woman who never once let slip this colossal terror under her daily life, had been fighting in a silent trench with her brother's life hanging in the balance. And the letters... I asked, "Why target me? Why now?" Jay didn't answer immediately. He pushed away from the table, pacing. "Harold has grown paranoid over the last year," he said. "Something changed. Someone tried to take him down from the inside. He got spooked, started testing loyalty, making us prove we were still assets." "And I was a test," I said bitterly. Claire looked at me with wounded eyes. "He said he needed to know if you were a risk, if you'd noticed me leaving, if you were suspicious, if you might go to the police someday and accidentally expose him." "Accidentally?" I echoed. "I'm a school teacher. I grade essays. I make coffee. I don't expose anyone." Jay gave a small, humorless chuckle. "Doesn't matter. Paranoia doesn't care about your job title." I leaned back against the wall. Everything in my life, every routine, every gentle morning, every inside joke, every shared blanket and whispered confession, felt suddenly suspect. "So what now?" I asked. "You said we're meeting him." Jay stopped pacing. "We're not meeting him. I'm meeting his handler, his messenger." "And what does that accomplish?" I asked. "It buys time," Jay said. "Makes them think we're still obedient, still useful. In the meantime, we figure out how to get evidence." "Evidence?" Claire whispered. Jay nodded. "Videos, documents, anything we can use to bring Harold down without dying for it." My pulse thudded in my throat. "What about the letters?" I asked. "Has he sent more?" Claire froze. "Actually, yes." She reached into her bag with trembling hands and pulled out an envelope, the same cream paper, the same wax seal with a small eye. "How long have you had that?" I asked, feeling something tighten in my chest. "A few hours," she whispered. "It arrived while I was getting ready to meet Jay. I didn't open it. I wanted you to see first." Jay stepped closer, voice low. "Open it carefully. He likes theatrics." I held the envelope. It felt heavier than the others, as if something more than paper sat inside. I broke the seal. The letter was short, very short, only one sentence. "Tonight, you will choose which of them survives." My breath left me in a single violent exhale. Claire went pale. Jay swore under his breath. "What the hell does that mean?" I snapped. "It means," Jay said grimly, "Harold thinks someone betrayed him and is using you to expose which one of us he'll punish." Claire clutched my arm. "Daniel, please, don't let him twist this. Don't let him turn us against each other." Another thud echoed outside, small, metallic, something shifting in the dark. Jay's head jerked up. "We're being watched." "How do you know?" I whispered, but I didn't need his answer, because the warehouse door creaked. Slowly, painfully, and a voice, a smooth, unhurried voice, seeped through the crack. "Why don't we skip the hide-and-seek?" The door opened wider. A silhouette stood there, tall, lean, wearing a dark coat that swallowed the shape of his body. His face was indistinct against the night behind him, but his presence filled the room like a stain spreading across clean cloth. Claire's hand found mine. Jay stepped in front of both of us. The man tilted his head slightly. "Daniel," he said. His voice was calm, gentle, almost soothing. "I've been waiting to meet you." He stepped fully into the warehouse. "And I believe," he said, "it's time we discuss your wife's debt." The door slammed shut behind him. The lock clicked. Claire gasped. Jay moved to grab something, anything, but the man lifted a finger as if he was scolding a child. "There will be no running tonight. No more secrets. No more improvisation." He smiled. It was the smile of a surgeon choosing where to cut. "The game ends in the next hour," he said softly. "After that, someone doesn't walk out of here alive." And that was when I finally understood. The letters weren't just predictions. They were instructions, a script written for me to obey. And tonight, the author had joined us in person. The warehouse seemed to shrink the moment Harrow stepped in. It wasn't his size. He was tall but lean, not physically imposing. It was the density of him, the quiet, the confidence of a man who had never needed to raise his voice to control a room. He closed the heavy door with the gentleness of someone tucking in a child. Then he turned the bolt. Click. Final. Inevitable. Claire stood trembling beside me. Jay moved closer like a shield. Harrow's eyes glinted. Ah, family loyalty. Always touching. Always exploitable. He walked toward us slowly, his hands clasped behind his back like a professor about to give a lecture. Daniel, he said, tasting my name. I've been impressed by you. I'm not interested in being your project, I said. He tilted his head, considering the rebellion almost fondly. You misunderstand. I don't want to break you. That is too easy. I want to study you. My skin crawled. Why the letters? I demanded. Harrow smiled. Because people reveal their truths under controlled fear. You, Daniel, were wonderfully transparent. Your wife, on the other hand, he turned toward Claire. Ah, Claire, once my most promising investment. Now, how shall I put this? An asset at risk. Jay stepped forward. You want someone dead. That's what the letter said. But you don't get to use him to choose. Oh, Jay. Harrow clicked his tongue. Every debt requires settlement, and a debt split between siblings requires resolution. He produced something from his coat. A recorder. He pressed play. Clay's terrified voice filled the warehouse. I'll do anything. Just spare my brother. My heart snapped like a brittle branch. Claire covered her mouth. I didn't know he recorded. Harrow stopped the audio. Of course I recorded it. People are so honest when begging for someone else's life. He turned to me. And you, he said softly. The husband who notices details. The man who came dangerously close to undermining months of careful design. I swallowed. What do you want from me? What I always wanted, Harrow said. Truth. Loyalty. A final decision. He reached inside his coat again. 3 envelopes. Cream paper. Wax seal. The small eyes staring back at me. He placed them on the dusty metal table. 1 for each of you, he said. And inside each, instructions. Clay's breath shook. Jay clenched his fists. Harrow continued, savoring the tension like a gourmet meal. Only one of you will follow your instructions correctly. Only one envelope leads to survival. Only one leads me to close your file. Jay's voice cracked with fury. You're insane. No, Harrow approached him. I'm efficient. He turned to me. And you, Daniel, will ensure they follow their instructions. Because a final choice. He smiled slowly. Belongs to you. My heartbeat thundered. I'm not choosing who dies. Everyone chooses, Harrow murmured. Some just pretend otherwise. He stepped back. Open them. No, Claire whispered. Daniel, please, don't play his game. But Jay's eyes said something else. Open them. We need to know. My hands shook as I reached for the envelopes, each sealed with identical wax, each cold, each humming with threat. I opened Claire's first. A single line. Tell him the truth you never wanted him to know. My throat tightened. Claire stared, frozen. What truth? I asked. She broke instantly. Tears streamed. Her knees buckled. Her voice fell out like a confession being torn from bone. Daniel, I didn't just lie about my brother. Her voice broke. I lied about why I worked late, why I disappeared. I lied about who I met. She closed her eyes. I carried messages for Harrow. I delivered packages. I knew what some of them were. Sometimes I helped clean up after people disappeared. My stomach shattered. You helped him. My voice was a raw scrape. She sobbed, not murder. I never hurt anyone, but I hid truth. I covered things. I erased people's tracks. I helped the machine run. And you didn't tell me. I wanted out, she whispered. I thought I could outrun my past by loving you harder. It felt like a knife twisting behind my ribs. I opened Jay's envelope next. His jaw locked. Inside, tell him what you stole. Jay's face collapsed. I didn't want you involved, he said to Claire. I swear. I thought I could fix it on my own. What did you steal? I asked, voice dark. Jay swallowed. A drive, he said. A backup of Harrow's contacts, favors, blackmail files. I thought if I had leverage, I could negotiate our freedom. My chest tightened. You stole from a man like him? That's why he's doing this. Jay nodded, shame burning in his eyes. I thought I could save us. You doomed us, Claire whispered, horrified. And now, Harrow said, Daniel must open his. I looked at the final envelope. Heavy, heavier than it should be. My hands trembled as I opened it. One sentence. Choose which truth damns you the least. What the hell does that mean? I asked. Harrow smiled. It means whichever betrayal you absolve shapes your fate. I looked between them. Claire, who had drowned herself in years of secret servitude to save her brother. Jay, who had stolen the very thing Harrow used to control the city's shadows. Both flawed, both scared, both tangled in a web I barely understood. And me? I was a clean man covered in everyone else's dirt. No, I said, I'm not choosing. Harrow stepped closer. You already have. He gestured around. You came here, with them. You listened. You didn't run. Your choice was made the moment you opened the first letter. Then, a gun appeared in his hand. Quietly, almost gently, he stepped between Claire and Jay. Only one debt can be closed tonight, Harrow said. So tell me, who carries a heavier sin? Claire sobbed. Daniel, whatever happens, I love you. Jay's voice shook. Please, choose her, not me. The gun pointed toward Claire. I moved. Instinct. Rage. Something primal. I slammed into Harrow from the side. The gun went off. A deafening crack. The world spun. Concrete slammed into my shoulder. Claire screamed. Jay shouted my name. Smoke filled the air. Harrow staggered back, dazed. The gun skittered across the floor, toward Jay. Jay dove for it. Don't. Harrow snarled. Too late. Jay grabbed it, rolled, aimed. A shot. A second shot. Silence. Harrow froze, eyes wide, a bloom of red spreading across his coat. He dropped to his knees. Jay lowered the gun, shaking violently. Claire collapsed beside me, sobbing into my chest. My ears rang. My vision blurred. Harrow looked up at us. You think? He coughed. Blood. Killing me ends it. Jay raised the gun again. Shut up. Harrow smiled. You have no idea what you started. And then he fell, face first, unmoving, dead. Jay stood trembling, the gun slipping from his hands. Claire held me as if I were the last piece of earth keeping her from falling off the world. I whispered, barely audible, It's over. But Jay shook his head slowly. No, he said, voice hollow. He's right. He looked at the warehouse door, at the shadows behind it. At least 3 people watched us coming. 1 will come to clean up. 1 will report this. And 1 will take Harrow's place. Clay's breath hitched. What do we do? She whispered. Jay swallowed. We run. And after? I asked. Jay met my eyes with a kind of resigned sorrow. After, he said, we live with the truth. I exhaled shakily. And the last letter? Jay looked down at Harrow's body. He wrote the ending, he said quietly, but we just tore the page. In my pocket, the envelope crinkled. The final words echoed in my skull. Choose which truth damns you the least. But in the end, none of us walked out innocent. We just walked out alive. And sometimes, in the ruins of betrayal, that's the closest thing to salvation the world has to offer.